Hi YouTube, XtremeTrainz here. So these videos I've been really excited about making. They've been quite a while in the works in that obviously these items have been advertised and rumored for quite a long time. They were officially unveiled as coming soon, almost over a year ago now. And finally we're starting to get them in our hands. So this review we're going to be taking a look at the brand new N Scale Bachmann, Annie, and Clarabel, who are obviously brand new for 2020. We're going to be taking a look at them. We're going to be doing some comparisons to the Tomix N Scale trains as well, and having a bit of a chat about those. I'm really excited. So what are we waiting for? Let's do it. So you see here the packages that we get for these Bachmann N Scale engines are quite different to, for example, the HO scale, where they're essentially blister packs like, for example, a Thomas Wood train. They are these kind of like clear plastic packages which look a lot more like model railway boxes. The first thing to note is they're huge. Like, look how big these boxes are. I assume because they're going to try and use the same box for everything. So the troublesome trucks have the same box. So I assume this must be like a Bachmann standard size N gauge box, and they've just made a custom little insert, as you can see here. What we get in terms of, I just think it looks a bit strange when it's like this, but anyway, that's okay. What we get in the side, we get the Clarabel coach with the item number on the side here. We get a little insert saying N Scale Thomas & Friends for electrical operated railroads, 14 plus here. And then we get a little bit of licensing stuff, blah, blah, on the back. There we go. There's that if you're interested in it, and there is the barcode. The one for Annie is exactly the same, except it says Annie on it. So, and these are the other way around. But that also just might have been the luck of the draw for that one. So, as you can see, this one's upside down. So I feel like someone's probably just inserted Annie in upside down when they were packing her in the factory, which is fine. So yeah, that is what that looks like. Now let's get these open. All right, you can see that we've got Annie and Clarabel out of their packaging now. So you can see they're quite small. In fact, to zoom the camera in quite a long way so we can show you all the details. So what we're going to do now is focus in here on Clarabel first, because she's the first coach I picked up. We're just going to rotate her around in front of the camera so you get a full 360, and then we can do some talking. So there's a couple of things to talk about with this, but we'll talk about the stuff that we like first. So what do we like? Obviously the colors and these designs on the top are spot on Thomas and Friends. I really like the kind of the bogey design they've got here. It looks really nice. I think the couplings, the way the couplings sit is nice and unobtrusive. I'll do a comparison with the Tomix ones very shortly, but the Tomix ones have a big block where the coupler is, and this one it's a lot more streamlined, which I really like. I really like details like the buffers. You can see we've got that little bit of red that's painted there, which I think is excellent. That looks really nice. Again, it's nice that we do actually have a 3D nose. So Clarabel does have a 3D nose. Interesting to note that she does have the smiley face. So none, which is what she should have, but pay attention to that for later. You can see we've got the little bits of gold picked out here for the door handles, and also we've got the Clarabel writing in there, as well as these nice, I kind of like these windows because they kind of, I actually don't know if they're clear or not. I can't quite tell. But they look nice because they look like windows, but you can't see like weird stuff inside. So that is nice. If you turn up to the bottom, you can see there's like a little production number. There's some other stuff, which is very hard to get the camera to focus on. And a little Bachmann logo there. And you can see we've got the N gauge. I think these are the European style couplers. They're not like the little Katie, little clampy claw ones. They are these ones, which is good because these are the ones that British and European railways tend to use. So that is good for compatibility, even though it's obviously Bachmann is an American company. And then we just have metal wheel sets, which is nice to see. That spin up quite nicely. You can see there's no spokes or anything in those wheels, but they are just solid pieces, but they are metal, which is nice. What's interesting about Clarabel is going to be revealed when we come up and we grab Annie, and you can see here that if we do the 360, they are actually pretty much exactly the same. And this is, I think, where some of the problems that I know a couple of other people have already kind of pointed out with these Bachmann coaches, is that they're the same. which is a problem. Firstly, because it means they both have the same face. And while I understand people kind of got a bit over the whole sad face, I did think it was nice when one of them had a different face to the other one. You can see here, unfortunately, my copy of Annie has got some weird paint stuff. The paint has, like, you know, obviously been done funny on the buffers. You can, and I'm trying to see if you can see it. It's very, very hard. It's very small. You can see that the paint's obviously splattered onto her buffer, which is a bit unfortunate, but that is the nature of the beast. But yeah, you can see they are the same, so they have the same face, which I don't super like. I like it when they have a different face. Even if they're both smiling faces, you know, like they could have different kinds of smiles, but you can see they're the same. The other thing that is interesting is that Clarabel is supposed to have like a little brake van kind of guards compartment at the back here, which actually should be here, because this is the back. But it doesn't. She doesn't. She's the same. And so that to me is a little bit disappointing. Obviously, that's the way Bachmann is trying to save on money by only having one mold, and they just print the new name on them. But it does mean that it's not very accurate, and I think that's really unfortunate because, you know, when you're designing something from scratch, you want to try and make it as accurate as possible, and what they've done now is meant that it's inaccurate. So that, I think, is a bit of a shame. But you know, it is what it is. And again, I guess the thing is, how much do we care about these little inaccuracies is probably a very fair question to be asking. So that's what these coaches look like. Now, the test is to get them out and compare them to the Tomix engines and coaches. All right, so the first thing I want to very briefly do is just get out some of the, this is Tomix N Scale track. It is not the Bachmann one, but just run them along, and they're very smooth runners, as you can see, and they do look quite nice together, don't they? But they do run very well on this track, which is good to see. Obviously, I'll have to test it with a proper layout in the very near future, but yeah, you can see that they do run quite smoothly and nicely on that. So now we can actually get out the corresponding rolling stock that would go with this track system. All right, so I've got the Tomix coaches here on the left-hand side and the Bachmann ones on the right-hand side, and straight away you can see a massive difference. Now, what I have, in doing some reading, discovered is apparently, and I did notice this, you know, if you've watched my videos, you'll see, apparently the Tomix N Scale stuff is actually a bit bigger than normal N Scale, and this is for the reason that there's N gauge is the distance between the rails, but scale is actually the size compared to the original. So apparently, and I didn't know this either, N Scale track is actually quite a range of engine sizes which will fit on N Scale track. So there's N gauge and N Scale are a bit confusing. So you can have engines in different ratios in the same way that HO and OO scale trains use the same track, but the engines are different sizes. My understanding is that N Scale is similar to that. So I don't think it's necessarily a question of whether these are too big. They're just at a different scale to most other rolling stock, and clearly they're at a different scale to the Bachmann ones. But as you can see, let's just get an idea of that. You can see here there's quite a big size difference when you look at these like this. Yeah, you can just see there's a lot. Yeah, the Bachmann ones are quite substantially smaller in pretty much every way. The couplings are about the only things that's the same size. The wheels are smaller. The length is a little bit smaller. The height is, I think, the most notable thing that is smaller, and I think that is quite interesting. However, obviously there are different things to like and dislike about that. So, for example, you know, the Bachmann ones have the red on the buffers, whereas the Tomix ones don't. The Tomix ones have plastic wheels with the metal bearings in the middle, whereas these ones have got the metal wheel sets, if that's something that you care about. You can see all the way through the Tomix ones, where you can't see all the way through on these ones, and that's a bit 50-50. These ones, you can see they've got a very glossy finish on the Bachmann one, whereas there's kind of like just a very matte color plastic used, and I'm not sure if that means that these have been painted or not. Or whether it is actually plastic, I'm not 100% sure. But you can see that there's a bit of a color difference. The same with the roof. It's a lot whiter on the Tomix one than the Bachmann one, which is a lot more closer to a gray. So, you know, which one is more accurate is anyone's guess. It's a little bit of, you know, here and there. Because, for example, Clarabel is more accurate in this one because she's got that little compartment at the back there for the guard, whereas this Clarabel does not. And then obviously, you know, the differences in the faces depends what you like. This is obviously a bit more like a CGI face, but it's obviously less detailed than the old one, which has got, you know, the different eyes and those extra lines around the mouth. So, you know, it's really depends what you like. Again, this is what I was talking about. These huge blocks that they've got here for the Tomix couplings, I think look a bit yuck. And these ones are much more streamlined, which is interesting because, you know, they're smaller, so you think they would have a comparatively, you know, be bigger. But, you know, that's kind of the differences that we're talking about. So please let me know in the comments below which ones you actually prefer. And then the really interesting part about this, obviously, is then if the coaches do not scale, as we're about to find out, if I can get him out of the box. Thomas does not want to come out and play today. He's misbehaving. We can see here that if we grab, you know, in front of me, this is the N Scale Tomix Thomas, who scales, as you know, if you've seen my review, I think incredibly well with his two coaches from that line. If we come over and connect him up to Annie and Clarabel from this line, while they will couple up, which is great, we love that, you can see that the scale is a little bit strange. Yeah, you can see here that that height difference is something else, you know, like when we put the other Annie and Clarabel behind these ones, you can, they're directly behind them. You can see there's quite a bit of height difference. I think you could potentially get away with it if you weren't looking closely. But I think if you're on close inspection, trying to combine these engines, you know, combine these lines together, it's going to be a bit weird. It's not going to look 100%. And I absolutely don't think that these coaches are so much better that I would use them instead of these ones, for example, because I think, you know, this, as we know from those reviews, this to me looks a lot better and makes a lot more sense scale-wise. So that's kind of that conversation. What are the final thoughts then? All right, so the first disclaimer I want to say at this part of the video is that, as is demonstrated by the shot in front of us, this is not a complete set yet. The Thomas and Percy for this line have not yet been released. James has also been promised to be coming, and he's obviously not yet been released. My understanding is they will be coming out in the near future, and so I am actually planning to buy the Bachmann N-Gauge starter set, which is meant to be coming out, so I can do a comparison of those Thomas sets as well, and try out the Bachmann track and do some really interesting stuff with that. So I think the first thing we need to say is, you know, obviously when Thomas comes out, we need to reevaluate this test then, because obviously if he scales really nicely with Annie and Clarabel, then that's going to be okay. Because I think that is a very important measure of a good Annie and Clarabel, is that they scale nicely with Thomas. And so, you know, and that's what I've talked about in the you know, Diapet videos, in Thomas Wood videos, in the Minis videos. You know, the scaling is important, and we can't really measure that here because we don't know what the Bachmann Thomas is going to be like yet in size. We've seen pictures, but we haven't seen him, you know, in the hands of the people yet. That said, I think that this is a really interesting item from Bachmann. I think they've done a good job in some aspects. I think I prefer the styling of the Bachmann coaches, Annie and Clarabel. I like the glossier paint. I like the little more accuracy in the colors. I think, for example, the red details on the buffer beams, when you put them like this, surprisingly actually looks really nice. Like, I think your eyes are drawn straight to it because it's such a bright detail amongst a pretty, you know, plain, on purpose plain, but a pretty plain color scheme. So I really like that. I like the side profile of the Bachmann ones a lot. But I like the faces on the Tomix ones more, and I like the accuracy on the Tomix ones more as well. So in terms of the difference between Annie and Clarabel. So I don't think there's a clear winner here. I think what's really going to make this decision clear for people is when we have a chance to compare the Thomases, and whichever Thomas you like more, I think you should I would strongly recommend you get the matching coaches for that Thomas, because I think the scale is really important. And I don't think the differences between these two lines are that extreme. So that's the first thing. The other thing to think about, obviously, is that this is probably going to scale better with some of the other rolling stock that you can get, especially British rolling stock like Pico and Graham Farish and that kind of stuff. So if you want to expand your Sodor Railway and keep it in British style, I think it's going to be better to do that with these this line because of that scaling thing. So that's going to be something we're going to talk about as well once I kind of get my hands on more of this stuff. The last thing let's just talk about is the pricing. So another thing, which again is potentially a positive or a negative, I think it's a positive, is that Annie and Clarabel are both sold separately and they're both sold by themselves. Whereas currently, and has always been the way, is my understanding, Tomix is only selling Annie and Clarabel in the Thomas Annie and Clarabel pack. So you can't buy just the coaches. And I think that's unfortunate because I know that pending, how these reviews go and these coaches go, my plan is to buy some extra Annie and Clarabels and customize them so I will pull the names off, like with the paint remover, get rid of the names, and they can just be branch line coaches, which is what happened in the TV series. They were just unnamed coaches that worked on the branch lines, because there's no express coaches or anything announced for either of these lines yet. So that's something I'm excited to do, and you can't really do that with the Tomix ones because the cost is going to be insane. Every time you want to buy a new Annie and Clarabel, you're going to have to buy a whole nother Thomas, and then what do you do with the extra Thomas? So I do like that you can purchase these coaches individually, and I think that's a good way to do it. I think that Tomix should take notes and should sell their rolling stock individually so people can buy more stuff like Troublesome Trucks, which is the same. They're bundled in with the engines. So pricing, we were getting there. This is a long video. These are not available yet in Australia, or at least I haven't been able to find any Australian model shops that have got them. That doesn't mean they're not coming out here, but there's often a bit of a delay, especially with a new item. So I imagine they will be coming out here sometime, but I don't know when. So I bought these again from that seller in the UK, the same one I got the day out with Thomas from. And so these were priced at about, I think they were £17.50, which translates to about 35 Australian dollars each. Now that is expensive, but not that expensive for N Scale stuff. Most N Scale wagons, even small wagons, are about at least 20 or 25 in Australia if you went to a hobby shop and bought one. So I don't think that's too unreasonable. For example, this wagon here, we can see this is an N Scale Dapol mail wagon, which was featured in my most recent series with these. Or if you want to go check that out, you should definitely check out my channel. You can see here it was $35 Australian. And I think these are pretty comparable in size. Yeah, so $35 is actually... It's expensive because they're models, they're not toys, but it is actually pretty reasonable in line with other N-gauge manufacturers, so I'm not too mad about it. The only thing that makes me mad about it is that obviously the shipping from the UK, for example, means that it gets quite expensive quite quickly. So I actually think the pricing on these is pretty good, and again, the Tomix ones were the same. They're quite expensive, and it's kind of hard to know how much they're actually worth because you can't buy them separate from a Thomas. So at the end of this video, I'm really, really excited, having handled these, to have a play with them, but also to collect the Bachmann N Scale line. I think, it seems like it's going to be quite successful. It's going to be a very big line. I kind of hope Tomix continues to expand their line as well. I would love to see them bring Henry back, who they used to have in the 90s, and also, the coaches and the rolling stock they used to have, which they have not re-released as of yet. But given we haven't seen any new releases from Tomix, I don't know if they are going to make any new Thomas items. They might either be not making them now that Bachmann's going to make them, or they're just going to keep making the same ones, and that's just going to be all they're going to do, which I don't think is bad necessarily. It's just, if you want to collect the engines, you can't. Whereas we know from the way Bachmann's gone with all of their G scale line and their HO scale line, once they start, they don't stop. They keep making more and more engines. And as I said, they've already announced James. They've already announced a bunch of tanker wagons to be coming out at the start of next year. So I'm very excited to be investing in the Bachmann line because I think it's going to be a great Thomas and Friends Railway to collect. And I'm super excited to get more of them. So make sure you let me know your thoughts below. I do have the Troublesome Trucks, in case you didn't already know, and I will do a review of them very shortly, and then hopefully we'll get some running videos of these guys ASAP too. So, enjoy the closings on YouTube. This is already a way too long video. That's all we've got time for. This is XtremeTrainz.